bottom-end quarterback, bottom third of the league, and we're driving to win the game and dominated time of possession. That's coaching. And by the way, weren't plagued by turnovers like the Cowboys. So I told you yesterday on the show, Dallas going to win, CeeDee Lamb's going to look really good, and Dak's going to be really solid. He was 22 of 27. Cowboys will win, and it will mean nothing. No, I mean, it means nothing. Dak is 24-4 against the Giants in Washington. 24-4. That's it, 24-4. And Washington and New York, since Dak's been in Dallas, win 38% of their games. They're terrible. They're two of the doormats. So Dak and Dallas both have benefited greatly, and Dak has benefited too. He's not getting that bag if he's in the NFC North and he's facing the Packers and he's facing the Lions. Not winning those games. But he's gotten rich. Good for him. Happy for him. Don't resent it. But Dak and Dallas have benefited greatly from having 2 layups in their division. And to his credit, he's beaten them, I guess. But they don't beat good teams. They don't win big road games, big standalone national TV games against the good teams. Now, for the record, Big Ben and the Steelers had this for years with Cleveland and Cincinnati. They just, before Burrow got there and Baker got there, Pittsburgh owned Cleveland and Cincinnati. But Pittsburgh got 2 Super Bowls out of it. So they were beating the layups. You know, by the way, Brady had some doormat. Miami and the Jets and Buffalo for years. But Brady paid you off in the end. I'm not blaming you if you have a couple of doormats in your division for 8 years, like Dak has. Pittsburgh had it, but you got the payoff. But what also happened with Big Ben late, Burrow's in the division now. Lamar's in the division now. Hell, Baker's in the division now. And at the end, Cincinnati and Cleveland weren't the layups. And suddenly the Steelers got really irrelevant really fast and brag about never being below 500. That's their standard. And the Cowboys' standard is, hey, we win 12 games a year, now kind of 8, and the 4 layups. Pittsburgh started lowering their standard. Hey, we're never 500, under 500. Yeah, but you're irrelevant in January and February, like the Cowboys. But to Pittsburgh's credit, they did get trophies out of those 2 layups for years. It did help them get home field advantage when you go 4-0 every year against the lousy Bengals and the lousy Browns. But here's what's happening. But Cleveland briefly got the right quarterback. Cincinnati got the right quarterback, and Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. And suddenly you get much less relevant. So here's what's happening in the NFC East. Philadelphia just needs the right coach. And even Sirianni with the right coordinator got to a Super Bowl. So Philadelphia's got better players than Dallas, and they're a better organization. Washington's got Jaden Daniels. Kid can spin it. Hey, who's he look like? Lamar Jackson. You know, ask Big Ben about that. So now you got a Lamar Jackson clone in the division, and the New York Giants, and I'll get to this in a second, they're just a quarterback away. That's all they are. They got the coach. So Dallas, congrats on the division titles. But you have this advantage. Brady took advantage of, for years, the Jets being dysfunctional, the Bills being dysfunctional, and Miami being dysfunctional, because it guaranteed him 5 or 6 wins in the division. He gets the #1 seed home playoff games. And Big Ben, to his credit, would beat Cleveland and beat Cincinnati. And he would use that to get seeding and home field advantage, and he got Super Bowls out of it. Dallas has had that, just layups. Washington and the Giants have been layups. Dak's 24-4 against them. It's getting you home playoff games. And what are you doing with it? Getting your doors blown off by Green Bay. So this doesn't mean anything. They've been doing this for years. And by the way, those tough road games and the better teams you don't beat, I looked at your schedule this morning. Here they come. At Pittsburgh, Detroit, at San Francisco, Philadelphia, Texans, even the Atlanta game's tough. Those are games you don't win, tough road games. So I don't begrudge you for getting a couple of layups in your division, but Brady and Big Ben and the Steelers took advantage of it. But what happened after a while for Tom Brady? He looked around and went, uh-oh, Josh Allen's in the division. Then Big Ben went, oh, Lamar and Joe Burrow are in the division. Jaden Daniels is now coming to town, and if Jalen Hurts can get, who knows, Shane Steichen may say, I'm going back to Philadelphia. The way Anthony Richardson looks. I'm not begrudging anybody for taking advantage of opportunities. Generally, most great quarterbacks and coaches, I mean, when Nick Saban was in the SEC, there were so many bad coaches. Then Kirby Smart went over to Georgia, and now Lane Kiffin's in there. And here comes Sark in Texas. And Alabama doesn't have that road like they used to. Saban retires, Kalen DeBoer. The point being is Dallas has given you nothing, having this like 7-8 year advantage where Washington and New York have been garbage.
Okay. I 1000% agree with Colin, and I've been saying this now for just ever, quite frankly, since the beginning of this channel. I've been saying this again and again and again. And I even pleaded with Dallas Cowboys fans a couple days ago in a video that I made where I'm like, I'm not hating on you. Like, I'm literally just being like, don't you want better? Don't you want your team to be better? And I'm curious, before I even really kind of go on my, give my take, I'm just curious. Like, what do you think about a win like this? Right? Like, do you actually feel good about a win like this? Because I don't see how you possibly could. Not only for all the reasons that Colin just said, but also, like, what was that game? The New York Giants are clearly awful. That was clearly, like, they could not run the ball, and it wasn't because of Dallas Cowboys' amazing defense, okay? It was, what was it? Let me see, I have it written down. They rushed for 26 yards. And they still could have lost the game. The Giants still were in a position to win the game even with only rushing 26. Daniel Jones just can't throw the ball. I mean, there was multiple times that he could have hit his guys that he just like couldn't throw the ball. They were just short or just off. Where like any other quarterback would have been able to hit those guys. Like just weird, bizarre stuff. And then the weird face mask penalty, which made zero sense. Like the Cowboys committed it on the Giants, and yet they called it against the Giants. It just made no sense, and that would have given them the ball at the 17-yard line. Who knows if they would have actually scored a touchdown, because all they could do was kick field goals. But the Cowboys had like 4 or 5 penalties in the first quarter alone, and then by the third quarter they had 10. It's just like, what are you doing? You're playing this bad team, this team that you should roll, and this is the game that we got, 2015. And if you're like, oh, well, we still played them good, they're not as bad as you think, and yada, 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 if you want to, like, kind of go play that card, I mean, the Commanders scored 21 points with rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels. That was more points than what the Cowboys did. And they rushed for 215 yards. Heck, the Vikings rushed for 111 yards. So out of all those teams, you played the worst against them. I mean, Dallas only rushed 80 yards against the Giants and scored 20 points. So literally the Commanders played better than the Cowboys versus the Giants. I just like, I don't really know what that game was. I'm watching it, and I take my notes, and I'm just like, there's nothing for me to take notes. Like, this is just nothing. Like, what am I watching? Is there a rule that Thursday night football games just have to be bad? I mean, that game was honestly brutal. And I would love to know what actual Giants and Cowboys fans felt about that game, because I'm sure, like, general fans of the league, people who watch, like, the Monday night and Thursday and just all the other games like me, like, there's no way anyone felt that game was exciting. And then the penalty by CeeDee Lamb, and I love CeeDee Lamb, for the record. I absolutely do. But you score a touchdown against the Giants. You've gotten rolled these last 2 games, and you then get an unsportsmanlike penalty. Like, what? What are you celebrating about? Your team is in shambles right now. You just scored a touchdown against the New York Giants, who's a bad team. You could almost lose this game, and you get a penalty for excessive celebration? Like, that's just absurd. I don't know what that is. That's a culture problem, a team problem, a coaching problem. I don't really know what that is. And then, and their way to try to get CeeDee Lamb involved, you have Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy, and CeeDee Lamb, and your way to get him involved is to hand the ball off to him, which I think he went like 3 for 8 or something. Like just bizarre stuff. I don't know what the game plan was. I don't, their run game is virtually non-existent. Their passing game was like, okay. You're going to be like, well, Dak Prescott was 22 for 27, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I guess. But there's just no way you looked at that game and felt that was a good game. That the Dallas Cowboys were like, that was a good win on the road against the Giants. Like, I just don't see it. And I'm really excited to see what Nick Wright has to say about this game, because he pretty much said if a game like this unfolded the way it is, where the Giants pretty much have a chance to win the game, or if the Cowboys win because of like a last-minute field goal, which is essentially what this game was in a nutshell. That's that style, that general style of game. He said this would be really bad for the Cowboys because the Cowboys usually roll the Giants, and this would mean that the Cowboys aren't as good. And as we all know, Nick Wright has been a massive supporter of the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm really excited to see what he has to say, because there's no way you can spin this game in a positive way. There's just no way. Absolutely, positively no way. I mean, I was so tempted just to turn this game off, but I was like, no, you got to watch this game. You talk about the Dallas Cowboys a lot. You have to understand who this team is. You're not going to just watch 10-minute highlights. Like, you got to understand who this team is. You talk a lot about them, know what you're talking about. And I was like, but I don't want to. I had to plead with myself. I was like, dude, this is a good problem to have. You get to watch football games and make videos on YouTube, and people watch you. Like, this is amazing. You know, I just talked about this, show some gratitude, and I was like, okay, fine. But I literally had to talk to myself. It's like, you got to watch this game. You got to watch this game. But it was brutal, man. It was brutal. It was just like, for the longest time, you could almost skip the Giants versus Cowboys because the Giants were so bad, as Colin pointed out, 38% win percentage. And the Cowboys would roll them. And it wouldn't really be that fun because it also was meaningless, right? You're just beating up on a really bad team. And I was like, okay, great. You know, Dak goes for 300 and CD goes for 140. Like, it's just, there's really nothing to learn from that. And so it was like, you know, not really that, those never really that interesting of a game to me. Then you watch this game and I was like, all right, this kind of is interesting because I don't think the Cowboys are really good. I think the Giants are bad, but maybe not as bad as I thought, right? Like they were able to eke out a win and almost beat the Commanders. And I was like, all right, maybe this will be like an interesting game, you know? And it was interesting, but awful at the same time. Like, it was interesting only because it was like, what are these two teams? I was talking to someone in the comment section and I was just like, this is just two bad teams playing each other. That's what it felt like. You could have a hard, weird, low scoring game, but it doesn't feel like it was two bad teams playing each other. You know, some examples of this were, I'm trying to think of another team that won't make Cowboys fans really angry, but reminiscent of the Eagles-Saints game, almost to a degree, although the scoring wasn't the same. But the Bengals versus the Chiefs, that wasn't like two bad teams necessarily, but just like a weird game that still felt like you were watching two teams capable of doing things. This game felt like you're just watching two teams that are incapable of doing things, right? Incapable of running the ball, incapable of playing defense. I was just watching the deficits on full display is what it felt like. It wasn't like, oh, this you know, the Cowboys were rolling, but then like, you know, they just the drive stalled because of just like an unfortunate circumstance, or, you know, whatever it may be. It was just not good football play. And yeah, I don't even know, honestly. Like, I'm the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, I really wonder how Dallas Cowboy fans feel about this game, right? Like, how are they absorbing this? Because I have a Dallas Cowboys you know, fan friend who you know, I saw he posted on his like stories or whatever, like, you know, win Dallas Cowboys, and I'm like, how are you even like posting that with like pride, with excitement, with joy? Like, it's like, there's no way you could feel good about a 20-15 win against the Giants. Like, there's just no way. And especially considering what the Cowboys have done to the Giants in years past. So, oh God. So, yeah. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What are you guys all thinking about the Dallas Cowboys? Are you impressed with the Cowboys last night? Or do you agree with Colin that they're the counterfeit Cowboys? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.